Hey Virgo, welcome to Catalyst Energies and welcome to your full moon astrology forecast. This is a report for Virgo rising, Virgo moon, Virgo sun, and I've been channeling your Virgo so hard because the perfectionism that I am trying to attain, which is impossible recording this video, is really cutting into like actual real time. and which is one of the many traits of Virgo and their incredible organizational skills, their discipline, right? Their commitment to their process. Perfectionism is the goal, the perfectionism of self. And so it's really, I keep wanting to be perfect in this, and it's just not going to happen. So, Virgo, this is your full moon, and we started with a new moon in Pisces. So the trend here is about relationships. It's about your relationship to other. Now, it is very easy for Virgo, especially that your sixth house is Aquarius, to kind of bypass that by going back into like hermit mode in some ways, right? I can control what's happening within me. I can control what's happening in my space. I can control my own time, my own resources, and that's what I'm going to do. And Aquarius has the tendency to be kind of detached and aloof, right? Like having this upper gnosis, right? The chakras open, the third eye open, and having a much more transcendent awareness of all of our needs and humanity as a whole allows one to be a little detached. And so Virgo, there's so much more to you when you are able to step out into relationship. And I know that for some Virgos, it might have been very difficult since Neptune's been in the seventh house because they can be very passive and it can be very hard to find your own boundaries. So you're either giving over yourself in martyrdom, you may have been really passive and not really engaged in relationships, just kind of letting it all, smooth out and not really get involved necessarily, or to feel it as a much broader humanitarian and spiritual relationship with everyone, right? Feeling the unity in your interpersonal relationships, that's absolutely a possibility. But I also know that there is about to be this full moon in your first house where the emotional self and how you feel about yourself and the essence of who you are being experienced either emotionally or subconsciously is going to be very powerful. This is 27 degrees and 40 minutes of Pisces and Virgo. So I think regardless of how it expresses itself, it will show you where truly your willpower really stems from as an individual, because that's going to be really necessary just moving forward into relationship. Because the thing about Virgo is that, yes, you're blending. You are the inner alchemist. It's through the hermitude that an individual goes underneath into the essence of who they are, under the surface of who they are, and utilize their resources to grow and develop and become more than themselves. You're very adept if you choose to be, right? If you're working with your personality at your willpower, being able to not just like control situations, but to be able to transfigure yourself or to alchemize yourself based on your interaction with duality, right? Remember, Mercury is your ruler as a Virgo, which is now in your seventh house in Pisces. So whereas for a number of years, relationships in general may have been more diffused for you, and you've been more diffused in relation to others and society in general, even if it has this very beautiful and transcendent quality to it. Now that the Sun and Jupiter and of course Mercury is here in this area, it's a lot more dynamic and has purpose and meaning. And in fact, I feel like a lot of inspiration to analyze and to really put the pieces together in your own life about who you are in relationships is really being inspired and using your analytical mind, which is a really strong point to who you are, Virgo, because Mercury is your ruler. So ultimately, it's going to show you about yourself. So I wanted to read the Sabian symbol. And if you don't know what a Sabian symbol is, I've linked the Astro Wiki page about it in the description box below. But for those of you who know what I'm talking about, so this is coming from Dane Rudger's astrological mandala. So this degree, we round up to 28, a bald-headed man who has seized power. So the bald-headedness suggests that there is a direct link between the individual and God or universal source or love, right? That's the idea. And it's coming in through the crown, which is much more connected to the faculties of the upper chakras, much higher frequency energy, right? That's coming in at those indigo and violet colors, right? This is the highest frequency energy on a visible light spectrum, are those colors. So it's so high intensity, and there's no mitigation factor for a masterful Virgo that it comes in and seizes power of the individual. So also, Virgo is very refined, right? There are cultural standards that a Virgo person is able to adhere to. So they're refined, but they are disciplined, but also innocent, right? And so there are cultural standards, but eventually those standards are, again, transfigured. When you step into a relationship, it changes you. It gives everybody the opportunity to come into the third, to find that pinnacle, right, of the three. The duality comes together. So the Virgo person is masterful at doing this within themselves, and they get to, they become earth magicians, truly able to utilize their mind and their knowledge to make actual changes in the world around them. So, but sometimes when these patterns need to be changed, there will be a part of our personality that will just step forward and seize power and make that change. It might initiate some sort of catharsis, but it's there to mobilize the will. And so sometimes it can be tragic and traumatic. Sometimes it can be really ruthless. It depends on what type of decision needs to be made and what's going on. But for the Virgo person, whatever has fully consummated and full abundance in who you are in your relationships, along with Jupiter, along with Mercury, reminding you what symbol you want to be aligned with, Virgo, it's going to be a swell in your very identity and how you feel about that, or in your feeling self, right? When the moon's transiting the first house, the sensitivity is towards your own persona. I think that this will be very illuminating about the power of the Virgo person at this full moon, which is important, because when we start moving into the 8th house, right, we have a vernal equinox right around the corner. The sun comes into Aries. This is your 8th house. This is where Chiron is. Okay, there's some serious betrayal and trust issues for Virgo, and in terms of being themselves, because of maybe past life situations. Certainly with Chiron, it is old situations that aren't even our fault that are brought in with us. Somebody else's fears, somebody else's conceptualization of what it means to be right, and also the idea that the way to heal from something is to continually keep that wound open, because it allows us a sensitivity to heal other people. Chiron is the wounded healer. So Virgo, just quite simply, there's been a lot of triggering and a sense of shame and guilt about just being yourself, because of there's no going back once you enter into relationship and the energy that is created. With every interaction, there is energy and power generated, right? And so we have to be mindful. We have to be disciplined. And to convince the Virgo person that they are undisciplined, or to in some way pull a Virgo person back into the old script of saving everyone in order to bypass their own wounding of possibly having, to be the betrayer, right? That's the thing about Virgo is, it's of service only if that's what you choose to do with your devotion. And I would love to say that all Virgo people have this beautiful, nourishing quality to them, but that's not the case. And we know that, right? That some people express this in a way of hoarding power, hoarding their resources, getting into using their devotion towards something like it starts to abscess within them. It starts to rot inside of them because they are not willing to step into into relationship with what they've developed. They want to keep it for themselves. And this, in the sixth house, often this will be challenged by some sort of crisis. And Virgo, if anybody can handle the crisis, it's usually strong Virgo people. And in fact, it'll be along the lines of relationships and who you are. And if your personage is going to seize power in the right way, and I think that it'll come through as a very intuitive and emotional experience. So other things that are happening for all of us, but for Virgo, we're looking at Pluto is directly involved with this full moon. So I would encourage you to listen to the astrology report on Friday, the 18th. We'll be streaming live at 10 a.m. Eastern. We'll do an intuitive reading, go through the weekend astrology just to understand the specifics about these transits, especially throughout the weekend. But what I will say here about Pluto in your fifth house is that, Virgo, I feel like that your joy in life comes from building something that will last, right? To give your work on yourself and the resources that you have put into effect into something bigger than yourself. And to have gone through all with Pluto in your fifth house, there is an incredible amount of power that can be extracted here for the cause of joy and exhilaration and passion. But I think for a lot of the people maybe watching this, they've found that the last couple of years, especially with such heavy Capricorn transits, and even with we had the nodes in Capricorn during this time as well. Since before January 2020, when Saturn and Pluto came into a conjunction, there has been a really strong metamorphosis of your joy and your passion. And it's because the very nature of it has been undergoing demolition. So keep in mind that the destruction and the demolition part, and even the fallow period, and even if you felt like your joy has really been diminished or destroyed, or what you thought you were devoted to has gone through this process, just know that this is actually very supportive of what you, and very foundationally, got a lot of traction here with showing you at this full moon. And in fact is also I think going to, in the same way, what has been taken away, what has been destroyed in the same way is actually an investment of that energy into the abundance of your actual relationships and who you are in relationships. Because there will be new passions, there will be new joys, there will be new children, there will be new thrills, there will be new romance, there will be new dating partners. This is all fifth house. And new projects, new group projects to work on, new institutions that you can put your energy into creating. The space is being made now, and the destructive element of Pluto, I think, is not only giving you a backdrop in order to see how powerful you really are, but also, again, like I said, an investment of that energy into an identification with, how much your relationships really have allowed for you to cultivate. If you've been cultivating it intentionally. Now, Pluto is very raw. There is a lot of like sexual dynamic with Pluto because it rules Scorpio. And when we're talking about the fifth house, this does have a lot to do with our individual lust and drive and passion at that level too. And so this could be pulling apart those aspects in your life about who you are in relation to that particular dynamic, how you express your own, blooming flower, or how you express your own passion and lust for relationship. That also is an energy that can be completely, that can just take the realization of how much you've grown in your relationships since then. It can just take you to a whole new level of awareness. So, which is going to be very important, as the next lunar cycle is really going to be addressing some serious wounding. Now, we don't often talk about Chiron in terms of his master teacher element, always the wounded healer. So Virgo, I would recommend maybe considering more of Chiron as the master teacher healer as opposed to the wounded healer as much, because there's something to learn that from our wounds. There is growth from and transmutation and transfiguration, which is really what the Virgo person, there is some weird things flying around in here. It got really warm and it's like all the bugs came out. Anyway, speaking of hygiene, right? This is like a Virgo thing too. And I do have strong Virgo. So something like this is a huge distraction because you're out of place. And I think that's also too, there's a sense of yourself being out of place, and that's okay. And there is a polarization that we're all experiencing right now between cosmic or natural law and human and socio-political law. And it's a natural bifurcation that happens within, because it's part of realizing that we are spiritual beings in a human experience. As the crowbar separation of that first spark of life comes into experience within the individual, it can be kind of like, oh, that's interesting, but think about it as a flying V. But this is where Chiron is. And so the 8th house is a place that the Virgo person is really able to be themselves, right? Because you've done the work on your own transmutation so masterfully that when you step into relationship, the power you do generate is a result of pure desire on your part. Remember, get some member berries out and realize here that Mars is the ruler of Aries and the ruler of Scorpio, which is the 8th house, is the Scorpio house traditionally. So know that your drive and your potency and your urge to gain more value or generate more energy in a positive way is completely healthy and normal for you, because of what you're able to accomplish as a result of your discipline in your own self. But this new moon, next new moon, is going to be where this comes out for you. So getting a handle on who you are in your relationships, really embracing the empathic, mystical, healing, compassionate, and fully surrendered quality of who you are in your relationships is going to, I think, really help get past what I think is a lot of feelings of trust and betrayal. That happens. The 8th house is where it really happens, because that's where the power is generated. So sexual intimacy is expressed in the 8th house between you and other. For instance, well, if there's trauma there or any kind of betrayal there, that is it's going to be in the 8th house, and it will have its own energetic resonance, right? That power is still generated regardless. So there might be trust issues and a sense of betrayal, that even a sense of betrayal of the human collective and how it has deviated from cosmic or natural law, because the Virgo person is able to just be themselves and generate something more than each party was able to generate themselves. If you can't be yourself, then you're not able to really have an impact on the power dynamics in society. And this is where I think the equinox is going to start having an impact in the 8th house, and then the new moon is going to activate Chiron for the Virgo person. So Chiron's a part of this conversation as well. So let's just look a week forward, because we're going to look at the moon in its third quarter position, which is actually in Capricorn, since we just talked about Pluto. Now, we do want to go back a little bit and remember that the first quarter moon was in Gemini, your 10th house, your career, your mission, right? Your professional, like, persona, what you are here to contribute to, what types of organizations or what types of frameworks or structures, institutions are you contributing to. And the quality of that for Virgo is the other Mercury ruled sign, which is Gemini. So this was where the first quarter moon was, with the sun in the 7th house. And so it's kind of like mental indigestion. That's what it felt like to me. And a feeling of it. It's not so much an expression of it, but something that was going on within us that was like, whoa, if I don't trust that everybody's going to show up at the right time at the dinner table, I may feel tempted to load up at the buffet beforehand, and, kind of overwhelm myself. And this is where, the Virgo person, you don't want to forget, and this is what Lilith has in store for all of us, but for the Virgo person in the 10th house, in your career and your mission, right? Which is as the is Hermeticism, basically, is the ability to discover and to explore, right? I mean, and to really master the dialectic and express it and to work with it. I mean, a lot of Virgo people will probably end up being, they're either healers in some way, or they're into science, right? Or into research in particular. Like, they release their energy or their power in a social setting in society by engaging with the realm of ideas and knowledge, right? Because Virgo not only is incredibly energetically powerful, it's just really smart, right? It's very analytical mind. And so it's in the realm of ideas that the Virgo person really finds their place. And Lilith is here and just, keeping you from really losing that anchor to what's actually your ancestral connection, right? Which is a big thing for Virgo, right? Is the root system. And the root system is the result of what, the lineage you came from as well. That has a lot to do with nature versus nurture and genetics versus epigenetics. Again, Virgo is so capable of managing the duality and the dialectic that they're able to actually be the most adept at the realm of ideas in terms of career. Now, the moon at the third quarter, the moon has traveled now all through, has met the south node, has come into your 4th house, and at this third quarter moon will be in your 5th house of joy, of passion, exhilaration, playfulness, romance, dating. What is it that gets you going, right? What is your authentic voice? And so with the moon moving this, it can be very dreamy and poetic, and you're really feeling into that devotion and having much more of a emotional experience with it. And again, this is the warpath, right? I mean, the war drums are banging within you, Virgo, and the warpath for something new to be created, the warpath for a group of people to start addressing the next step in gaining more power, gaining more security, right? You're going to be feeling it. And that third quarter moon, that is a crisis of consciousness where the Aries sun, actually, let's see here. Yeah, the Aries sun is much more, I can transcend this situation on my own. It's like a triangle with wings. It is. Let's actually read the Sabian symbol. I just want to be clear because, Virgo, you need we all need it, but you in particular, it's like, give me the specifics. A triangle with wings, the capacity for self-transcending. It's the idea that a new dimension of being is envisioned, which mobilizes like personal creative endeavors, right? And are you going to sink back into your feeling entirely? Well, the challenge and the conflict of this square, just like every quarter moon square, is that the emotional or feeling-based experience is not full, right? It is distorted because it's only half of the picture. But the sun is still very much full, which is having you identify and really, the sun in the 8th house is definitely a will to sacrifice oneself, to really give one's ego over to the relationship in order to allow something more to be experienced or felt. And this requires the descent into the abyss of one's shadow. But there's also a very warm and very brilliant and very spiritually, positive and enlightened identification with, like, look what we can do together, right? And look what I can do for us, right? Look what I can do for us. I can self-transcend in almost like levitation, because I know that there's somewhere new to go as a result of who I am. It's all in front of me, and I can actually transcend my own limitations for us. Look what I can do. And this is just going to remind you about your own passion, right? And the rhythm of it. And you'll feel it in your soul, right? You'll dream about it maybe at this point. And it's about your own joy and passion, okay? And there's nothing wrong with this, right? But again, the new moon is really going to highlight the Chiron aspect of all of this, the wound that's really holding you back from transforming, Virgo, is going to be a big theme of April in general. So finishing up this cycle about who you are and who you are in relationships is essential to being able to really go into that space fully, just like the sun is there, fully willing and capable and wanting to identify with the power that we're generating together. And for Virgo, it's truly just being yourself, right? The potency of who you are is able to generate power quite naturally in relationship, because you give yourself over entirely. So you become the field of potential that is realized in a seed point, with the urge to get more, to gain more, to get closer, right? But then you'll get this stop. Oh no, I don't know if I can go all the way down there, right? It didn't go so well before. Or I am a bad person for wanting to even consider that there's a different way of doing things. So that's going to be interesting for all of us. But for Virgo, like, it's not often that you are really able to identify your own authentic voice, because there's so much of you is about giving yourself in total surrender to the unity, to the brotherhood, however you conceptualize Pisces, to the transcendent experience. But in order to get there, finding your voice is going to be very important. And Virgo, I suspect that it's been very difficult to really identify what that's been, because all we've had is destruction of that over the last 2 years. And all we've seen of that, right? So it's important to keep your head up. What else is going on here? Well, at the full moon, like I said, it'll be conjunct Chiron. So what are all the relationships with Chiron in the meantime, Virgo? So this, we have Venus and Mars that both were in a sextile to Chiron, and also on the other side of it, Lilith at one point being in a sextile to Chiron. So on either side, it has to do with your mind, Virgo, and what you are doing with it personally, and the way that is released as energetic potential, or in terms of your career, is these are both investments into this position. that allows you to use your very analytical and intelligent and empirical and rational perspective here to kind of rise above, or be able to at least recognize that when you acknowledge as a material person in a material experience that there is in fact a bifurcation. When you realize that and accept it, I think that the mental aspect that you carry from both Aquarius over here and then in your 10th house, which is Lilith, both of these are supporting and actually lifting up out of the woundedness of it and lifting you into much more of the master teacher Chiron aspect in this area as well. And then you can actually truly help heal other people in very in these realms, like Virgo people, especially if you have Syrian starseed markings in Virgo, the capacity for shamanism and to assist people in shadow work and to go into these realms is very strong, because you've mastered this realm within yourself. You've faced your own inner demons as a Virgo, or ideally that's what you've done. So then you are capable of traversing the darkness or the shadow of others through, any kind of like counseling or shamanic work or anything like that. And so Virgo, Chiron's going to be in Aries for a number of years. So it's not as if this is going to go away anytime soon, but you can tell that it's all going to start concentrating around this area, because Virgo, we need people like you to be able to descend into these spaces or identify with these areas without losing yourself or giving yourself over totally, because you in fact are the master, and you get to be Gandalf or you get to be Sauron, and that choice is up to you. And that will have a big impact on, the belief systems that you're operating under, which is where the North Node and where Uranus are. So if we go ahead to the actual new moon itself here, you'll see that the new moon's here. You'll see that Mercury, your ruler, is right behind as well. So there's going to be, and in a square to Black Moon Lilith at the same time in your 11th house. So that's something we'll talk way more about when we get closer. Obviously, there is tons of content that I put out freely leading up to these points, and we have our Starseed Fellowship on the 25th to go deeper into the third quarter moon. So I'm going to leave it there for you, Virgo. I hope that this message found you well and you were inspired, because Virgo is one of the most masterful signs of the disciple and discipleship in the zodiac. And right now, we need that type of symbolism to come forward right now in Virgo people, because they're the ones who have the dedication and commitment. So I'm going to leave it there for you, Virgo. Thank you so much for being here. I truly appreciate each and every one of you. If you're interested in a reading, energetic work to support your process, to become a member through Subscribestar and participate in the Starseed Fellowship, all of that information is in the description box below. And I will see you next time, Virgo. Have a very beautifully full moon. Allow yourself to feel into the fullness and how powerful you are, and everything that you have worked on attaining thus far, and how it has nourished you and supported you as a person. And we'll touch base again soon. Thanks a lot for being here, Virgo. I'll see you next time. Bye.